Three takeaways from Atlanta United's 1-1 draw against Toronto FC at BMO Field in Toronto. Sydney and Henry with you. Henry, I think I was prepared for another loss for Atlanta United, but then maybe a little stroke of good fortune for Atlanta United. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but a draw north of the border, back-to-back draws doesn't do much, but at least you do have a little bit of momentum going into 3 straight home matches coming up at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Takeaway number 1, Jaden Hibbert. We got to talk about Jaden Hibbert first. Getting the start in place with Brad Guzan, who is working his way back from a fractured cheek, had surgery. It's probably in line to start against Toronto FC, but ultimately Ronnie Dylan made the call to put him on the bench and start Jaden Hibbert. Me personally, I thought he was good. I thought he had some really good saves. I thought he committed his box well. I thought he held his own against Toronto FC's attack. The goal that TFC scored on the night is nowhere near his fault. Just bad marking for Atlanta United in the box. Really mistake-free football for Jaden Hibbert in his first career MLS start against Toronto FC.
I'm with you. It was a very good game, a very good showing for him. He had 4 saves on the night, and several of them were kind of tricky saves, where he had to stretch, where he had to really dive. And so that's something very encouraging to see from the idea is for Hibbert to kind of be the heir to Guzan or a future starting goalkeeper for this team. And this was a good showing for him. And so it's encouraging to see that from someone that you expect to be the future between the sticks for this club.
Yeah, not a lot of complaints for Hibbert. Again, looking back at the goal that he allowed, again, just poor positional marking in the box. And Davy Flores gets really a free header that he knocks past Hibbert. Again, what can you do if you're the keeper? Not much help from the defense. But, yeah, again, just a solid performance for Jaden. And like you said, you're looking for whoever will take the mantle for Greg Guzan after this season. All expectations are that this is his last with Atlanta United, whether he continues his career elsewhere, retires after 2025, remains to be seen. But by all accounts, this is it for him, for Atlanta United. And we got a little bit of a glimpse of the future with Jaden Hibbert as an Atlanta United player with the first team. And I thought, like you said, he did well, acquitted himself well. Takeaway number 2, let's talk about Luke Brennan winning the penalty late. I don't know why it took so long for VAR to determine that it was a penalty. I mean, it looked like it was pretty stonewall on behalf of the TFC player. But Luke maybe, I don't know, maybe sells it just a little bit. Maybe makes a little bit more of it than it is. I mean, I feel like if it happens on a training ground, I mean, you just carry on as you are. But, Luke, maybe you mentioned it beforehand. Digging into the dark arts a little bit to force that penalty. Ultimately, Latte Lath scores. I mean, as soon as Sean Johnson gets contact on that ball, I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, this guy's never going to score again this year. But ultimately, even though Johnson gets contact on it, it kind of gets by him, back of the net, and it's 1-1 Atlanta United. Good on Luke, though, for forcing that penalty. Again, maybe makes a little bit much of it, but in the end, it is a penalty, and Latte Lath takes care of it.
He does make a little bit much of it, but sometimes that's what you need, right? We know this, that he is kind of, I call him a master of the dark arts because, he had, I mean, first of all, this penalty moment, but we saw last season, I think it was in a game against Houston, where he basically baited a Houston player into a yellow card, which, and then he drew another yellow card in this game after that penalty, I think. So you start to see his ability to do that, and that, that is a valuable skill, even though it's not like, actual like soccer.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It kind of is, but
it's part of the game. And if you're able to get in the opposition's heads, I mean, you frustrate them, you force them to mistakes, you force them to get yellow cards, which puts them it makes their situation a lot more precarious, because then they've got to be mindful of how they tackle. They can't really go very strongly into things, because then they'll put they risk getting sent off with a second yellow. So it's good to see us have a player like that again. I feel like we haven't had one of those in a while.
Yeah.
And also just his presence in the final third. I feel he was a bit more effective than Saba. I feel like Saba, he had his chances. He had the ball in some good spots and just couldn't really get it out of his feet. Took a couple bad touches. Luke received a few good, I want to say a few second balls. He received some good balls into the box and
Mm.
tried to do the best he could with them. And sometimes it kind of came off. He was able to pass it or, win a corner or something. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, this kid is amazing. But I think the
Yep.
highlight of it was him winning the penalty that ultimately, stole a point from this game.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, I mean, I want to see some more of him, and uh, hopefully, you take any advantage you can, right, in a season like this. And so having that kind of player, it certainly helps to compensate where you might be lacking elsewhere.
Yeah, this was always a possibility, right? The midweek match coming up, Saba's minutes may be being managed a little bit, but I agree with you. Not the best game for Saba. You know, this evening against Toronto, Luke comes and gives you a little spark that you need, and I would expect, especially with Edwin Mosqueda having been loaned to Millonarios, that Luke's minutes and opportunities will grow, you would hope, within the back half of the season, on top of the fact that LA United have been poor. Um, I think you will see a lot more, or you should see a lot more of Luke Brennan as time goes on. Takeaway number three, yes, you get the draw. Yes, you kind of smash and grab your way to a point at Toronto FC, but it's tough to really get too excited about this. Atlanta United need wins. Atlanta United need 3 points in many of their matches moving on, and can't really enter your way up to the table with 1 point here, 1 point there. You need 3 points. You get a little bit of a momentum boost due to the fact that you do kind of smash or grab your way to a point at TFC, but at the same time, though, you know you need 3 points, and you need to really go into this home stretch, this 3 match home stretch. This is no excuses. Has to be 9 points for Atlanta United against some opponents that aren't easy. Chicago certainly not the best team, but not a terrible team either. Charlotte, who have kind of dipped off, and then Seattle, really the toughest of those three. You have to have 9 points if you're to have any shot at making the playoffs. And again, maybe you get a little bit of momentum boost from tonight, but this doesn't really help your cause as you try to move up the table.
If you want to move up the table, you got to win games on the road.
Yeah.
And the, the DC game and this Toronto game, those were probably two of your easiest games on the road this season. And both of them were draws. And so
Yeah.
it's not great. Like you said, you need 3 points at this point. You need to get the points where you can. And this team isn't really getting that job done. And again, it just feels like there are players that are not really performing to the level that's needed of them. Some that I would even dare to say it feels like they've given up already, because it just, you just see it in the way that they play, in the way that they, you know, go into games and in plays. They just don't look 100% committed. There was a little bit of that tonight, and I think for Ronnie Dyla, there is a massive task ahead of looking
Mm.
at this team, looking at the players, and he said it earlier in the season. There's no more free rides, right? There's no more, you don't just play because you're getting paid big money, or you don't. No one has a locked on spot on this team, and he needs to really start taking a look at this roster, at the players and the performances, and say, okay, these guys are putting their heart in for the team. We need more of that. We need to spotlight that a lot more. And then there are these guys who aren't really giving it their all. There are these guys that don't really have the mental fortitude for this, and are not putting in the performances. And so we don't need that, because the thing is, it's not just about you know, whether they score goals or not, or whether they concede or don't. It's about the example that you're showing the rest of the squad. If you're playing players that very clearly are not performing, then you're telling the rest of the squad that it's okay to be mediocre.
Yeah.
That it doesn't matter how you perform. I mean, you'll just get minutes. And that's not the message at all. If you really want to change a culture, it's got to start there by showing the players that you're not afraid to make the tough decisions, that you're not afraid to bench a player just because they are, you know, based on the performance rather than
Right.
what they're earning or what their roster designation is, and kind of send that message that if you play well, you're going to play. If you don't, you're not. It's as simple as that. And you really need that as we get closer to the end of this season, because the opportunities, the margin for error for this team is paper thin right
Yeah.
now. And they
Yeah.
need, like you said, they need 9 points of these next 3 home games, and they need to go on basically supporter shield pace if they want to make the playoffs this season. Anything less will not be enough.
Yeah. Again, tough to really celebrate this draw because of the situation that Atlanta are in, but really they have no one to blame but themselves. Still, though, 1-1, the score in Toronto. Atlanta United win a late penalty. Latte Lath scores his 6th goal of the season's first goal in a number of matches. Atlanta take on the Chicago Fire Wednesday back home at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I'm at SH Wrights on X and Blue Sky, SH.soccer on Instagram and Threads. Henry is at HA Hagita on basically all social media platforms. We are at Scarce, a letter and Spikes on X, Scarce and Spikes everywhere else. Remember, scarceandspikes.com and patreon.com/Scarves and Spikes. Sydney, Henry, signing off. We'll see you next time. I pointed the wrong way.
You pointed the wrong way, but it's okay.
Yeah, I don't care. It's fine. I'll live with it. See you guys.
It's all good. See ya.